What if practically everything you've been told makes a good life, like falling in love, buying a home, getting a promotion, building a family? What if all of that is actually a mathematically guaranteed formula for suffering?
I mean, it sounds completely backwards, right? But that is exactly what we're looking at today.
Yeah, we are doing a deep dive into a text from 2010 that claims exactly that. It's a really fascinating piece called The 18 Source Causes of Life's Pain.
Written by an author named Xu Feng, translated by Tongson, and edited by Kayir.
Right. And the foundational premise here is something I think, you listening can likely relate to. It's this idea that human life should be joyful, it should be free, it should feel blessed.
But then, you look around.
Right. You look around and the vast majority of people are just trapped in this relentless daily cycle of anxiety and trouble.
Yeah, and the author doesn't just offer this, vague philosophical complaint about it. The text breaks the human condition down with almost surgical precision.
It really does.
It outlines 18 highly specific root causes that generate this pain. And in doing so, it basically dismantles the very architecture of what we consider a quote-unquote normal existence.
Yeah, it takes a total sledgehammer to traditional marriage, your career trajectory, and even just your basic sense of self.
Absolutely.
But before we go down this rabbit hole, let's be absolutely clear about our mission today. We are unpacking a highly unconventional, sometimes deeply disruptive worldview.
Which blends some traditional wisdom with some incredibly countercultural ideas.
Exactly. So our goal is purely to explore the author's internal logic impartially. We aren't endorsing these claims, and we're definitely not taking sides on any of the philosophical, religious, or societal arguments.
Right. We're just acting as your guides to understanding a very complex, fascinating map of reality.
And to understand that map, you have to realize the text operates on, multiple scales simultaneously.
Yeah, it connects the macro structure of the universe directly to the micro stresses of your daily commute, which is wild.
It is wild, and that concept of a map is actually where the author begins. The foundational argument is that your core values regarding life and the universe act as an internal GPS.
Right, your navigational system.
Yeah. And if your coordinates are set to cynical, purely materialistic goals the text uses that old saying, people die for money and birds die for food, as an example.
Yeah, that one.
Right. If that's your GPS, the author argues you are actively driving your life toward a hell of anxieties and fears.
Because the mechanism he's targeting there is your horizon of consequence.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Well, when your worldview is entirely materialistic, when you believe you just live a short lifetime and then die, like the light of a candle going out, your behavior adapts to that artificial scarcity.
Oh, wow. So you panic.
Exactly. You prioritize immediate selfish gain because you literally cannot perceive a longer timeline where actions have reverberating effects.
Like cause and effect.
Right, the text brings up the laws of karma and reincarnation, and it claims that if you ignore these, your life becomes messy and confused. The author actually compares people living this way to flies without guidance.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack this a bit more, because the text introduces a massive cosmology that goes way beyond just basic cause and effect.
Oh yeah, it gets huge.
It asserts that if you reject the existence of the greatest creator, gods, Buddhas, and what it specifically refers to as 20 parallel worlds and 36-dimensional spaces.
I love that part.
Right. If you reject all that, you limit your view to a profoundly narrow life field. It basically blinds you to a bright future.
What's fascinating here is how the text utilizes this immense scale to solve a really practical psychological problem.
How so?
Well, it isn't demanding you learn the physics of 36 dimensions to pass a science test. It's using that vastness to recalibrate your perception of a crisis.
Okay, I think I see where you're going.
When you operate with a narrow worldview, every minor setback feels like a catastrophic final failure. You lose a job or a relationship ends, and it feels like the end of the world because in your limited map, it actually is your whole world.
That makes so much sense. It's like trying to navigate the Pacific Ocean using a map of a swimming pool.
Yes, exactly.
Every single wave feels like a tidal wave because you just have no broader context. But if you adopt this multidimensional perspective, does the text suggest these parallel worlds are just escape hatches, like places to hide from your mortgage?
Not at all. It's really about continuity. If your cosmic GPS includes these vast parallel dimensions, and a continuity of life beyond the physical, it instantly de-escalates your existential panic.
Right, because it's not the end.
Exactly. The bad boss or the financial hit isn't the ultimate arbiter of your worth. They're just momentary frictions in an infinitely larger journey.
It removes the claustrophobia of finality.
Perfectly said. You stop playing a finite game with infinite intensity, which dramatically lowers your daily anxiety.
Okay, so if an infinite perspective is the correct GPS, we still have to figure out why we keep voluntarily driving into the ditch.
Right. Why do we keep messing it up?
Because the text doesn't just blame the universe, it points the finger directly at human psychology. It moves from these 36 dimensions right into the mud of the human ego.
Yeah, it focuses heavily on our inability to exercise restraint.
The instruction provided is so vivid. It says, only take 1 cup of water among thousands of rivers and lakes.
I love that imagery.
It's beautiful. The author argues that wanting to possess all the rivers is a direct path to pain. It's a fundamental critique of infinite accumulation.
Because if you spend your energy trying to hoard the ocean, you're going to drown in the effort of just maintaining it.
Yeah. And the text applies this to the other end of the spectrum, too, with a really blunt assessment of opportunistic behavior.
Oh, the part about laziness.
Yes. It targets laziness, stealing achievements, consuming without contributing. It states that people who just eat and sleep without a higher purpose will lead painful lives, and I'm quoting here, unless they can become pigs.
Which is an aggressive metaphor, sure.
Aggressive.
But it highlights the friction of betraying your inherent human potential. The author views human consciousness as a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So if your only goal is passive consumption, you're attempting to downgrade your consciousness to an animal state.
Right.
But because you are human, that misalignment generates internal suffering. You literally cannot cheat the requirements of your own awareness.
So what does this all mean for the person who is actively trying to succeed, like the opposite of the lazy person?
Well, the text explicitly targets ambition too, specifically what it calls the evil consciousness of comparison.
Yeah, being competitive, always wanting to have a better life than others, wanting to show off. But let me push back on this a little, because in the modern world, a little competition is usually seen as the engine of growth.
Sure.
We're told that wanting to be better than you were yesterday, or even outpacing a rival, is what drives innovation. How does the text justify calling this evil?
The distinction the text makes is between internal mastery and external superiority.
Okay.
Striving to improve your own skills might be a natural progression, but the pathology, the evil the author describes, begins the exact moment your goal shifts to being superior to others.
Ah, I see.
When you do that, you tether your internal state to external conditions you completely cannot control. Yeah. You're making your happiness contingent on someone else's lesser status.
Wow, it's like you're building a house on someone else's foundation.
Exactly.
If they suddenly build a taller house, your self-worth collapses even though nothing about your own house actually changed.
And then you are forced to defend that illusion of height. The text actually constructs a specific profile of the annoying person based on this ego trap.
Oh, right. This part is so specific.
It describes someone who is arrogant, who speaks with a teaching tone, shows contempt in their eyes, and disrespects others' dignity.
Which sounds exhausting to be around. And exhausting to be. Arrogance is incredibly labor-intensive. When you look at others with contempt, you have to constantly maintain a wall of superiority.
Yeah, it isolates you.
It completely severs the equal, energetic connection with other people that naturally generates joy, and it replaces it with a defensive posture that, according to the text, guarantees lifelong suffering.
Guarding a pedestal sounds exhausting, and that concept of guarding things, it actually brings us to the most disruptive part of the author's philosophy.
Oh boy, yeah.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's one thing to tell people that arrogance and greed are bad, right? Most of us can conceptually agree with that.
Sure, that's pretty standard wisdom.
But the text takes a really sharp turn here and attacks the very things society universally tells us we should want. It targets our deepest, most celebrated attachments.
Yeah, it moves from personal psychology to just a radical rejection of societal norms. It essentially looks at the blueprint of a successful modern life and identifies it as a blueprint for a prison.
It explicitly calls out love. Yeah.
And not just toxic love, but marital love, faithful love, pledge of eternal love, voluntarily suffering love. It labels all of these as poisonous love that inevitably brings pain.
It's a huge claim.
It really is. It argues that the more you own, the more you suffer, because you must spend energy maintaining your possessions. You resort to cheating, fighting, intriguing just to keep them.
Right.
The author refers to life as a short journey. an illusion of a flower blossom, making the chase for fame and profits absurd.
And that metaphor of the flower blossom is vital for understanding the author's logic here.
How so?
A blossom is beautiful precisely because it's fleeting and fragile. If you try to possess it, like if you try to cast it in bronze to make it permanent,
Mm.
you destroy the essence of what it actually is.
Wow, that's true.
And the text applies this exact logic to human relationships.
But I mean, calling faithful love a poison is incredibly abrasive.
Definitely.
When two people make a pledge of eternal love, society views that as the ultimate security. It's supposed to be the antidote to a chaotic world. How does a wedding vow translate to guaranteed pain in this framework?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the text's definition of autonomy. The author views institutions like marriage, family, the nation, political parties, religions, all of these as programs.
Programs, like software.
Exactly. Think about installing a program on a computer. Once installed, the computer must run according to that software's rules.
Oh, I get it.
So when you attach your ultimate well-being to another person or a societal institution, you're adopting their rules, their defensive postures, their inevitable changes. You surrender your independent consciousness.
You become what the text bluntly calls a suffering slaver or puppet.
Yeah. When you pledge eternal love, you are attempting to lock in a future state of emotion and behavior that you cannot possibly control. You're saying, you are mine and I am yours. But the moment you define a person as a possession, you introduce the fear of losing them. And that fear is the seed of the pain. You spend your life guarding a perimeter against infidelity, against change, against death itself.
So the text implies that our deepest connections are actually our heaviest chains, because they're built on this foundation of possession and exclusion.
Precisely.
Like, a nation requires borders to defend. A traditional family structure requires a psychological border that prioritizes the in-group over the rest of humanity. You are constantly policing lines in the sand, which just generates unending anxiety.
You spend your entire life defending perimeters that, from the perspective of those 36 dimensions we discussed earlier, are entirely artificial and temporary.
So if we follow this logic to its absolute conclusion, we're supposed to strip away all attachments. We don't possess people, we don't buy into the nation state, we don't chase career achievements, we don't claim ownership over rivers and lakes.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like a mandate to just walk into the woods and disappear.
It really does sound like that.
Yet, the text introduces a fascinating paradox when it actually addresses how we function in the physical world.
Yes, because the text draws a very firm, practical line between spiritual surrender to the way of nature and practical obedience to human law.
Right.
It warns that departing from the greatest creator's intention or suppressing your nature to attain quote-unquote supernatural power or special abilities is futile. The imagery it uses is hurling eggs against stones.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's painful and entirely useless. But the real twist is how it handles the concept of government.
Point 17 explicitly warns against violating laws and disciplines.
Yeah, it's so direct.
It really is. It states that while countries can disappear, governments cannot, because they're structurally necessary to maintain societal operation.
Right.
It demands that citizens obey conventions, constitutions, and laws. It states unequivocally that committing crimes will surely cause painful lives.
Which feels like a huge contradiction at first glance.
It does. You're told to mentally reject the program of the nation, yet you are strictly warned to follow the government's rules. It's like being instructed to play a complex board game with absolute precision, following every rule in the manual so you don't get penalized, while constantly whispering to yourself that the pieces are just cardboard.
That is a perfect analogy.
Oh.
And this raises an important question about the mechanics of rebellion and freedom.
Okay.
The text is not advocating for chaotic rebellion or anarchism,
Yeah.
because rebellions require you to care deeply about the societal structure you're fighting against.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If you are furiously fighting the system, you're still entirely tethered to it. Your identity is defined by your opposition to it,
Yeah.
which is just another form of intense attachment.
So how do you live in a society without being of the society?
The goal the author outlines is internal liberation combined with external harmony.
External harmony.
Right. You stop at the red light, you pay your taxes, you don't commit crimes. Not because you believe the state is a sacred spiritual entity, but because running a red light creates physical friction.
It literally causes a crack.
Exactly. It causes physical pain. So you maintain the efficient operation of the physical society you happen to reside in, but you do it without internalizing the identity of that society.
I see. So your compliance isn't spiritual submission, it's an energy-saving measure.
Yeah, essentially.
You avoid the physical suffering of jail or fines, which frees your mind to exist in that untethered, multidimensional space. You roll the dice, move the piece, and avoid going to jail, because real jail hurts. But you don't derive your spiritual worth from how many Monopoly houses you own.
Spot on. It's external compliance to avoid unnecessary physical friction, combined with total internal detachment to avoid spiritual friction.
Wow.
You basically become invisible to the neuroses of the modern world. You are fully present in your physical reality, but completely unburdened by the need to control anything around you.
That is a remarkably tight needle to thread.
It really is.
Let's try to distill this massive philosophical undertaking for you listening right now, because it's a lot.
It is a lot.
According to Su Feng's 2010 text, escaping the 18 sources of pain requires fundamentally rewriting your relationship with reality. First, you have to recalibrate your cosmic GPS, acknowledging higher dimensions and a larger spiritual continuity that shrinks your daily anxieties down to size.
Right, getting out of the swimming pool.
Exactly. Second, you must ruthlessly eliminate the ego's desire to compare, compete, and hoard. Third, you're asked to mentally detach from the programs of traditional marriage, family identity, and material success to avoid the poison of possession.
Yep.
And finally, you have to do all of this while quietly and perfectly obeying the laws of your local government to avoid physical suffering.
It basically asks you to look at your daily stresses, your bank account, your relationship dynamics, your career goals, and critically examine how much of that pain is self-inflicted, simply by holding on too tightly to a temporary illusion.
It's a mirror that reflects a very different image than the one society hands us.
Absolutely.
But it leaves me with one final lingering thought.
What's that?
If we actually manage to pull this off, like if we successfully detach from everything the text calls poisonous, letting go of faithful love, the drive to build, the desire to belong deeply to another person, do we achieve ultimate multidimensional freedom?
That's the goal of the text.
Right. But do we risk losing the very human friction that gives our short flower blossom of a life its meaning in the first place?
Oh, wow. It forces you to ask if the gravity we're constantly trying to escape is actually the very thing keeping us grounded.
Exactly. Something to really think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning your world, keep exploring new perspectives, and we will catch you next time.